In this maturing DB market, administration has never been so important, simply because of the demands that trustees are placing on their administrators, whether it's in terms of de-risking or liability reduction exercises, delivering complex buyout programs, or increasingly more complex retirement options, such as PI and trivial commutation. But also including things like the regulators increasing oversight in terms of the quality of data and the quality of administration services that support it. So managing all of those different projects is now placing a far greater demand on administrators than it ever had done. And so there's a far greater reliance on trustees on their administrator for delivering their strategic objectives along with the day-to-day service. So service agreements are really the bedrock of the administration relationship. They do a number of things, but critically they drive the relationship between the administrator and the trustees. But unfortunately there's a preoccupation in the administration market with time as a service indicator. And that's really come about from the history of administration services, where we found delivering things in a timely manner to be very difficult. But that's pretty much a historical perspective now. The service for most administrators should have moved on considerably. So time as a key indicator should be forgotten. And what trustees really need to be focusing on now is far more qualitative service measures. And this can include things like member feedback, error rates, complaints. Those service indicators provide much more detail in terms of the standard of service that administration is supplying. Also, trustees need to think about how the service is structured around their long-term operational strategic aims. They need to define what is important to them in terms of the service agreement, whether it's a focus on the day-to-day service level or whether it's more strategic aims like buy-ins, buyouts and any other deliverables against liability reduction exercises. It's not really what you might think administration is anymore. It's evolved well beyond the old adage that it's the right benefit to the right person at the right time. And now good administration in a modern operation includes a whole range of other service requirements and skills as well. So things like project management, data analysis, programmers, developers and communication consultants should all play a role in a much more modern, engaging, forward-looking administration service. Getting that right mix of the required skills and knowledge to fit the operational requirements is absolutely critical. There is not a one-size-fits-all anymore, and trustees need to think very carefully about their aims, the type of service that they want to deliver, and what skills they need to support that. And the skills that are sometimes needed to deliver day-to-day operations are very different to deliver short-term buyout, de-risking or other type of liability reduction exercises. So assurance frameworks are a really good way for trustees to keep a much broader view on the security and resilience of the administration service. But the challenge is that they have mushroomed over the past few years, and there's now an assurance standard framework for pretty much everything, whether it's from data security to processes. So with them come some additional challenges. They are not all universally implemented in the same way, so trustees need to be conscious of that. Having one label, one assurance standard can vary from one organisation to the next. So there shouldn't be an assumption that the controls within one assurance framework, because it has one label, will be applied, controlled exactly the same way in another service organisation. So they do need to be analysed, they do need to be understood, they're complex and varied. But what they do is allow trustees to sort of absolve themselves of some of the oversight and management they need to regularly check those controls, because there's an independent body in place doing it. The only other thing to be very conscious with all of these assurance frameworks is that they're always a point-in-time assessment. And they're all retrospective as well. So they are effectively telling you how good the service has been over a historic period. They may not be able to give you some really good insights into the resilience of that service on an ongoing basis. So they won't tell you at any one point in time whether the service can withstand shocks or changes. All they can tell you is that the control environment has been steady and complied with the stated parameters historically. But still, they're a useful tool. The only other point that I would make is trustees must get copies of the assurance reports, the audit finding reports, and not assume that because the insurance framework is in place, that everything is happening as it's expected to be. Trustees do need to play a part in reviewing the outcome of those results and audits to make sure that any exceptions are being dealt with. So it's really important trustees move away from this old-fashioned time-based turnaround time assessment. It's not a qualitative measure, it just tells them one thing, whether within a stated timeline members have received the information that they asked for. And whilst time is a factor in good customer service, it's not a key differentiator. So the first thing trustees need to do if they want to truly analyse the quality of an admin service is to forget the turnaround times. And what they need to start doing is think about far more qualitative measures like member feedback, rework rates, levels of automation within the admin operation. They should also look at a more reporting by exception framework as well. Administrators are guilty of producing a huge amount of statistics and analysis in terms of the service, and most of it happens to be white noise. So trustees need to be able to cut through that, either reporting or reviewing cases by exception, or agreeing a set framework with their administrator where things will only be reported and highlighted if they fall outside of that system. I always draw the comparison to getting your car MOT'd, and that when you receive the results of it, you don't spend an hour going through all the things that were right with the car. You focus down on the two or three things where it's failed or it hasn't met the required standard. And the same should be said for admin. If you really want to get under the bonnet and have a look at the quality of the service, then repeat that process, report and review by exception. And then finally, the only other thing I'd recommend trustees do is to really review the outputs of assurance reports and audits. Whilst assurance frameworks are great and they provide a certain level of assurance, very true trustees or pension managers actually ask for the outputs of the audits. They contain an awful lot of good quality information and commentary on the control environment. So if your administrator has any type of assurance framework, ask for a copy of the results annually and make sure you spend the time reviewing it. Well, you can contact Trafalgar House. We've got a wealth of experience as an administration specialist in terms of designing and delivering high-quality administration services. And we're more than happy to support trustees, review their service provision, or provide input into some of the qualitative measures that they can use to really have a much better oversight and insight into the quality of their service.